Yeah, so here goes. So not so much an event, I think, as more a practice that I discovered was here when I first arrived way back in September of 2015. And I was informed by several staff members, and it was our student council moderators, our chaplaincy team lead, athletics, that they had a practice of doing monthly leadership meetings. So the beginning of the month, these students from these various groups, these various activities that were happening in the school, organizations that were happening in the school, they would get together and along with their moderators, and they asked me to be part of that. I very quickly, I think after the second or third time that we met, I realized that the potential for impact from that group of student leaders was incredible. How much you could do by giving those students a sense of agency, a sense of advocacy for themselves, and to be there and to listen to them. So we sort of took an opportunity to look at a past practice that was still ongoing and that was very effective, and we built on it. Over the 4 years that I was here, from September 2015 to, I guess, March of 2019, we built on that practice. We made the group meetings larger so that all groups were represented. Black History Month had representatives when we came together. We had our best buddies. There was someone. And what we discovered was that it became an opportunity for students to share what they were doing in their groups, but also to learn from everyone else about what was happening. It became a great way for those leaders in each of those school clubs and groups to take initiative, to lead the session, to chair the session. And it was an incredible planning tool and an incredible organizational tool for the school at large, because everyone knew what everyone else was doing, when they were doing it, who was fundraising at what time. And for me, as I watched those students, because the gift is that some kids are in grade 9 around the table, and some kids are already in grade 12. And so you watch those kids in grade 9 as they mature up to those kids who then become in grade 12, and the mentorship and the leadership that they exhibit amongst themselves and with the school community at large. It was an incredible gift for me to see that kind of growth in our students. And I think it speaks to what the school is all about, I think, at its core. You know, the motto of heart speaks to heart, and how schools could, students within a school could take ownership and leadership around matters that really were important to them. So I was impressed by the students in that group, and I was impressed by the process, so that, as I mentioned, we continued to do it, and we built around it in a sense of true, honest, student-led leadership. From a month-to-month, year-to-year basis. And then we were also able to honor and acknowledge all the different things that were happening in the school, and the kids sort of became advocates for what was happening. Yeah, so for me, that's one of the things that really resonated with me when I arrived, that I helped try to nurture and help grow, and that I still think about now, even though I've retired. Yeah, so I think I described a little bit how I think it impacted students, but I would say that by far it was important for those students to see that as an administrator, as the school principal, I believed their voice was important enough that I sat at those meetings every month. And I think the impact was that it empowered them to feel like they could bring their concerns to the table. And equally important, that they could plan and celebrate, and then collaboratively, being the gatekeeper, as we are in administration, as principals and vice principals, but that they understood why there might have been a reason for not doing something a certain way, or an explanation, that they began to understand the bigger picture of how the school runs, and of what a powerful role they can have in shaping it, but also in understanding what the limitations are. So I think that the impact that it had on students was positive, for sure. It was enabling in a lot of ways. And then as the group got bigger and we included more clubs and more groups, I think it just gave voice, like I said before, in terms of agency, that students felt they had some control, and that there was a collaborative nature amongst the admin, for sure, the student moderators, the staff that were moderators, and the students themselves that were leading it. So I would hope, I guess my prayer, my dream is that they would have taken that as a model that they could then exercise in their own lives, whether it's at work or at school, that when you come together with mutual respect and understanding, when you're open-minded, and that when you're really truly there to listen deeply to the other person, that there's value in that it's not wasted time, that it's important time, and it's something that you should make time for, to listen and to make sure you really understand the other person. So I would hope that that's the impact that it had. The time that I spent here was joy-filled, for sure. Some of my fondest memories were of main office staff and attendance staff kind of communicating through the atrium about kids that were in one line or another line, and again, in a very joy-filled kind of happy manner. I think that's the best way to describe it. And I recall fondly lots of laughter in the main office, lots of laughter with our great secretarial staff, with our guidance staff, and our special ed staff. Like it's a busy place. And I would say that one of my fondest memories, maybe not directly related to laughter, but certainly kind of joy-filled. Both Adam Nicolucci and before him Enrico Galante, we were often serenaded in the main office by the ukuleles or the choir, or if there was a birthday or a special occasion. In particular, Mr. Galante always had, set the mood with music. His saxophone or his students, and there was music playing to mark the occasion, which made it really, really special, along with the laughter and along with the good times. But the music really kind of set the tone, for sure. I know that one of the challenges that I think we faced at Johnson in the years that I was here was coming to a deeper understanding of our own biases and how that played out and how that plays out in understanding not only education, but in honoring and respecting the other person that you're in exchange with. We did a lot of work around race relations as best as we could. We started that conversation during that time about uncovering our biases. We did a lot of work trying to understand the students' perspective, particularly students of color, and how they were feeling in the space that we were creating. And it was tough, and there was pushback, from staff, from students. It was messy, and it was sort of the beginning of a journey, I'm sure, that continues today, because we're still discussing, anti-racism. We're still discussing even our grade 11 English course around Indigenous education, and trying to truly understand what it means to respect the dignity of another person. And I think, though, that it was a beginning that, it wasn't a beginning, it was a centerpiece of what was happening, I guess, in the whole world. And it sort of kind of came to fruition while we were here at Johnson. And I think that in our own way, in our own Johnson way, we were already facing what we knew needed to be addressed, perhaps a little bit ahead of the curve, but nonetheless, I'm glad that we did. So I guess that would be something that I think should be added to the conversation. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.